not only do the comments disappear, that's 2 days in a row. I've got strong Wi-Fi. It connects and then breaks right away. Now tell me if this turns into the whole stupid thing where my voice and my face aren't synced anymore. Because if that's the case, I got to switch out of Restream tomorrow and start going back to Rumble Studio. So just let me know if I'm out of sync again, because the exact same bullshit that happened yesterday happened again. The exact same thing. Anyway, we'll talk about it. Let me know. Muslim Bitcoin, assalamu alaikum. I'm not feeling RFK right now. VP looking mad sus. Am I the only one? I'm going to assuage all your fears about that today, Muslim Bitcoiner. I'm synced up good. Thanks, Bapeth. Thank you. Yeah, the same scam. Something's wrong with this broadcast software that I'm using. I don't really understand it, but we're going to have to abandon it and go back to the Rumble thing, which failed us once, but we're going to be doing it. You are aligned and in sync. Okay, great. I'm in sync. Great. One boat wash guy. We haven't seen him yet. We haven't seen him since. Too much swearing that day, though. I saw in the compilation video that Joe shared with us. Did we get some Phil Bump today? We got Phil Bump today. Morning, brother. I am synced today. Great. All right, let's get into it. Let's acknowledge that although you're not seeing the blue skies we're used to, we got a sunrise here on the Atlantic coast of North America. And Bitcoin's running. We're doing great. Let's have a coffee and talk about what's new. Jason Cadell says, happy Wednesday to the Breakup gang. I'm looking forward to your book this weekend. You will have it, but I got to warn you, I might, because this is related to one more comment that I noticed up at the top. Or maybe I noticed it on, because I checked the normal YouTube to see what I was missing. Someone asked, are we getting a special 500th episode? It was timed to be, just fortuitous timing. It was supposed to be the 500th, but I may have to take tomorrow off. Tomorrow's a holiday here. The Easter break begins this afternoon. And I had a sort of breakthrough in how I was going to write the book this weekend. I think I need a straight day of using this morning creative time of mine. I got to take this energy tomorrow and pump it into the book so that it's out Friday. It's done. I'm just in the last stages of making it great and beautiful. You know, the difference between a good book and a great book is like 1%, right? So I got to put that 1% in. So I might not get the timing right. So I think maybe no show tomorrow, and that I'll come back. And then, but the timing's off. So anyway, my priority is to get the book to you Friday for the holiday weekend. And it might involve one less show. So there you go. That's what's up. That is what is up. Tweaking. Yeah. It's the final sort of massaging of what I've written to make it fun to read and exciting and funny and all of that stuff. So we're almost there. It's there. We'll talk about it today. It's going to be part of our theme today. But first, we got to get some Moscow time. We got to get the fakest news I could find today. And what did Wired have to say? Neuralink's first brain implant is working. Elon Musk's transparency is not. Elon Musk says Neuralink's first human trial subject can control a computer mouse with their brain, but some researchers are frustrated. Oh no, the researchers are frustrated. Damn. By a lack of information about the study. Oh, wah. The researchers. Oh, no. Oh, this is great. If you are not American, I got an idea for you. Why don't you take a trip to New York City as a non-American and ask for one of these? New York City Mayor Adams starts handing out free credit cards. The cards are preloaded with a $350 credit, which is topped up each week. Wow, sounds good. The only catch is you have to be an illegal. That's it. You have to be an illegal. Okay. There you go. Thank you, New York Post. This one's great. This is from Bloomberg Energy, right? Public opinion has turned against immigration and corporations in the Netherlands. Once Europe's most open economy, and companies are threatening to vote with their feet, and they say that populism is scaring them away. Populism. I wonder if it's the people getting arbitrarily arrested on social media. No, it's populism. Populism. Here's another one. Prince Harry among A-list celebrities named in $30 million sex trafficking lawsuit against Sean Diddy Combs. Now, don't believe any story you hear about famous people. They're never true, right? So they really are never true. This one is testing my patience with the state of Israel, by the way. The ADL, first of all, the ADL. So it's an American thing, right? We all know the ADL is American, right? But don't you think Israel could turn it off if they wanted to, right? Don't you think they could turn it off? We saw last week they went after Candace Owens, Now this is what the ADL is telling us, right? The ADL is claiming that 100% is racist and a white supremacist. So literally, the word 100%. So if you do really well in a test, you get a racist grade. Shorthand for 100% white, apparently. And if you didn't know, the ADL says 100% is a term used by white supremacists. Have you ever heard of that in your whole life? Now, I even, if there are even these people, I know them. They don't talk like that, okay? No one is sitting there saying 100%. Quebec does have one, though. Quebec will say pure laine, right? Pure white as wool, they'll say. Pure wool. Also not racist. People have made it racist. They just, anyway, there you go. This one's good. So, the NBC, MSNBC podcast. Oh, UTXO. You got to be careful, bro. You got to be careful. That's some racism in the chat. You're going to get censored, right? You're going to get censored. Racist. All right. So, the MSNBC has this podcast, right, called Prosecuting Donald Trump. It's a whole podcast, right? What's going on? The walls are closing in on Trump, right? This is what they asked. The lawyers, Mary McCord and Weissman, questioned the fairness. They questioned the fairness in reducing Trump's bond payment, right? All these racists everywhere. 100%. The ADL is 100% wrong. 100% of the time. Hammer saw. Hammering them. I love it. That's why it's racist. Yeah, Israel's really got to fuck off with this ADL thing. I get it. It's a Democrat weaponized body. But why don't they stop? Haven't they perceived who the enemy is? And if they don't, what are we really talking about here? Right? This is a problem. They got to fucking stop. Love Israel, but I'm running out of reasons to even want to think about supporting them publicly because it's getting pretty embarrassing. So that's what they got there. This one's great. This is from the Washington Post. Those seeking employment at the RNC after a Trump-backed purge of the committee have been asked in interviews if they believe the 2020 election was stolen, according to people familiar with the interviews, making the false claim a litmus test for hiring. Now, I got to ask you guys, would you hire someone who believed the 2020 election was legit? Would you? Imagine a Bitcoiner. Oh, yeah, that 2020, yeah, you got a job, man. You got a job. It's sad what is happening. Yeah, it is. It is sad. Very sad, Hammersaw. Very sad. There we go. Oh, this one's great. So this is the now they're doing God's work here, the Washington Post, without realizing it. So they're doing a Trump attack in this Moscow time. But look at how great this is for us Bitcoiners. Look at what they're admitting here. Okay, look at what they're admitting. Former President Trump's social media startup surged Tuesday in its first day of trading as a public company, a stock market debut that helped deliver the Republican presidential candidate a multi-billion-dollar paper fortune. Thank you. It's a paper fortune. We agree. Nothing fake about that. Oh, this one's great. So Phil Bump, we were asking about the Phil Bump fake news. He's got a good one today. It's not really fake news, but it's pretty funny. So I don't know if you guys saw this. It's at one more of these Babylon Bee headlines coming true. So Babylon Bee wrote this a long time ago that Trump would soon monetize the Bible and he would come out with a Trump Bible. All right. And guess what? Phil Bump on the story. The All-American Bible with a cut of sales going to Trump. Donald Trump finds votes and profits at the intersection of politics and religion. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. He's got the shoes, he's got the Bible, he's got the billions, right? He's got a lot of bills to pay, right? But the Trump Bible is perfection, right? We love it. We love it. All right. The next ones I got here are all about the Ronna McDaniel's firing. And there's been a lot of cope over in Moscow time about this, right? A lot of cope in Moscow time about this stuff. Here's what we got. Breaking. This is from MSNBC. Ronna McDaniel is out at NBC News. Cesar Conde, chairman of the NBC Universal News Group, emailed the staff writing, after listening to the legitimate concerns of many of you, I have decided that Ronna McDaniel will not be an NBC News contributor. So she got fired, right? Your total is 2211 for your set of keys to heaven. We love it. We love it. So we got more. We got more of the Ronna McDaniel's firing. There's some really good ones, right? This one's great. New NBC News staff are concerned that the hiring and abrupt firing of Ronna McDaniel will damage relationships with GOP sources, making it more difficult to break news. Some Republicans have been complaining to journalists at their network about the move. Now, you've also got to know something about the Ronna McDaniel's hiring, a little bit of context. You know why they hired her in the first place? Do you know why? Because she's the dumbest one available. They wouldn't hire a good surrogate for Trump. Right. So they figured, she just got fired in the purge, that they called it a purge. Right. She probably had to get some revenge. And she's kind of a moron. Right. According to Vivek and others. She's what's his name? Mitt Romney's niece or something stupid like that. Right. So the only reason they hired her in the first place was because she was so stupid and terrible at her job. They don't want someone clever in that job. Right. They wouldn't put someone who actually knew how to describe what Trump meant. And, they didn't want anyone like that. So imagine the worst person they can find isn't good enough. The worst. We love it. Now we got some female reaction to all of this stuff, right? Hold on. I got another one. We got Hollywood. NBC News ousts Ronna McDaniel after staff uproar, right? Can they recover? There's another one out there. Can they recover? Glenn Greenwald writes about it. Media liberals recognize one and only one evil in the world, Trump and his allies. Warmongers, CIA chiefs, neocons, congenital liars, FBI spies, Cheney acolytes, torturers, kidnappers, conspiracists, all of whom NBC employs, are fine as long as they denounce Trump. Yeah, of course Vivek called her out in the debate. She's an idiot. She's a complete idiot. Like, what kind of a here's the thing. Here's proof of what an idiot she is. Imagine you're working for the Republican Party. And where did she live? New York City. How many Republicans how many MAGA people do you think you meet in New York City? How many? And the ones that are there are hiding in the tunnels. They're hiding in the tunnels. They're not around anywhere. They can't go above ground. They can't show their face in public. They can't wear a MAGA hat. You know what happens if you wear a MAGA hat in New York City? It's over. It's over. It's done, right? 100%. When I abandoned my place in New York, I had a bunch of stuff, and in the end, I couldn't even hire a moving company because I was so worried in that 2020 climate that they would find my MAGA paraphernalia and just trash my house. I mean, for real. We had to do it personally. We couldn't hire anyone because of the dangers. So that was legitimately the reason. Oh my God, if I hire someone, they're going to come in my house. I'm not going to be around because you couldn't cross the border easily at the time. They're going to come in my house. And they're going to probably not do the job I asked them to do once they find what's in my closet, right? They're not going to do the job. And I had an original red hat, an original from 2016, the first issuance, right? So Bitcoin Graffiti says, you really have to write that NY story down. Such a wild story. Yeah, I think I will one day. There was a lot of moving parts to it. I think I will write it one day. Make a Medium post example. Yeah. Well, for the book on the weekend, by the way, on Friday, I will publish it on Twitter. I'm going to try this new Twitter articles thing and see how it goes. And because I've never been a fan of Medium, and I don't feel like building a following on Medium or any of that stuff. But if the Twitter thing works, I'll do it there. So it would be a good one. So another person reacting to that, the staff are concerned, right? So that was the Glenn Greenwald reaction. We got Molly Hemingway too. She writes, the Russia collusion lie, the Kavanaugh smear, the J6 hysteria, Biden sycophancy, rabid anti-GOP treatment on every issue were all fine, but firing the single Republican and otherwise all Democrat staff after 48 hours of meltdown is too much. Oh, it's good. Okay, now we got to get to some the female reactions, right? You want to hear some batshit crazy female reactions to Ronna McDaniels? We got Jen Psaki. So everyone's trying to compare Jen Psaki to Ronna McDaniels, and she comes out and she says, the right-wing ecosystem compared me to NBC colleague Ronna McDaniels, and she says her conclusion is, this is about truth versus lies. We got more crazy women. Rachel Maddow says Ronna McDaniel will not be on MSNBC. And I say that and give you that level of detail because there has been an effort since by other parts of the company to muddy that up in the press and make it seem like that's not what happened at MSNBC. Right. So that's Rachel Madcow and what she had. Glenn Greenwald writes about it. The pompous self-importance here is hilarious. MSNBC employs those who sold the Iraq war, stole the 2000 election, tortured, invented a hacker story, spread insane CIA lies. But preventing boomers from hearing Mitt Romney's niece is a brave act on principle. We got one more, though. Not quite a mentally ill female, but close. We got Chuck Todd. The only man left on that side of the debate. The only man who really does have all the mental signs, the earmarks, as the 51 known liars might say, the earmarks of mental illness. Here's Chuck Todd. The issue isn't about ideology. It's about basic truth. The truth to make this a left-right issue are being intentionally dishonest. This is about whether honest journalists are supposed to lend their credibility. So much credibility, Chuck. You're so credible to someone who intentionally tried to ruin ours. So that's the real great thing about this Ronna McDaniels thing. It's because they ran so many psyops and so much propaganda around her that because they had to switch immediately and hired her, they kind of gave up the whole game, right? The executives were like, well, the whole thing was kind of a scam. So it kind of makes them admit as co-journalists that they gave up the scam. Her very presence outs them as a liar, which is why it's so fun, right? It's like the executives were like, the stuff we had you saying for a couple of years was stupid and a lie, and it was kind of a failed psyop. So let's try something else new, right? Let's try something else new. So good. Yeah, Psaki is my fave. Yeah, she's great. She is just great. Yeah. It's again, what I love that picture of her the day she was at the White House when Trump got elected originally. And it's going to look similar to when she's lining up for a rocket launch. All right. Or if we use a balloon, it'll be a balloon. I'm not sure. I think the balloon is the better way. That's how Felix Baumgartner got up there. Right. That's how he got up there. So I don't know if we're going to have to use one of Elon's rockets, but there'll be some stuff out there. All right. So we'll continue in the theme of women with mental illness and where all that's headed. And we'll talk about RFK's VP candidate who we chose yesterday. So now a lot of you out there saying this is no good and this is bad for RFK, not feeling RFK. What do we do about this person and all that kind of stuff, right? I got another contribution. Time comes. America's retirement age of 65 is crazy. Well, we'll talk about this another time. I'll save that. But I'm also not a believer in retirement. That's a communist word. That's what they do to horses who are done working, right? You retire a horse, not a human. Recalibration, realignment. Oh, dang. I forgot the one important headline. I got to read this one. There's one more from Moscow time. It was hilarious. Where is it? Did I get it here correctly? Anyway, it literally came out and said that the major issue with the Ronna McDaniels is they want the newsroom aligned. Because newsrooms have to function with Nakamoto consensus, or no, sorry, bad joke. I made a mistake. They have to function with consensus. They have to be aligned, right? How could journalists function if they're not in alignment? I should never use Nakamoto consensus when referring to the media. It's always going to be a mistake. All right, so let's go to Kennedy's VP candidate. So here's the thing you got to see and why it's, I think, brilliant and really helpful for Bitcoin. So here's some facts you probably don't know about her. So first of all, she was married twice already. She's the child of a, it's neat to see the two Irish names, Kennedy and Shanahan. First of all, I just kind of like the look of that. Her mother was Chinese and like a maid. So she came from a pretty working class background. She had to work. She had to do all of that kind of stuff. So she was married twice before, once to some banky whatever guy, and then she met Sergey Brin, and it looked like that sort of overlapped. So she left that guy for Brin, and she was only married to Brin until end of the pandemic. But she did, get a bit of a windfall from that, a couple $2 billion. She's quasi-married now, and here's what a lot of you don't know. So she quasi got remarried to who? One of the main advisors to Lightning Labs. So she is coming in this with her new boyfriend or whatever as a straight up total 100% Bitcoiner, right? So now the stuff she talks about, the stuff she went on about yesterday, is probably not of interest to people who are deep into the rabbit hole of media and all of these subjects and Bitcoin and the economy and all that kind of stuff. But what she did talk about yesterday, and this is why it's kind of a brilliant move by RFK. Now, it doesn't help him win, but it does mortal damage to the Democrat Party. Mortal damage, right? What you had yesterday was a woman up there talking about health, talking about poisoning the food supply, talking about big pharma, right? So now you're going to get some real rocket fuel added to these debates around all the different prescriptions, whether we're testing for these things. She talks about getting answers within months, not years, when they take control, and her as vice president has this mandate to go after these things. So it's really interesting stuff, right? So here's some of the stuff she talked about in her announcement yesterday, right? Now, it's true. People are saying the following, right? Wall Street Silver, RFK Jr. selects Nicole Shanahan as his VP running mate. She has a lot of links to the radical left, including Soros and the World Economic Forum. If RFK Jr. is trying to lure Republicans in swing states so that Biden wins, this is not the person who helps that goal. Well, he's totally right, right? Indeed, this is anchored in turning his attention towards stripping Democrats away from Biden. This is a major problem for Biden. Now, when they went with Aaron Rodgers, that was sort of rumored to be one of the people they would go with. Now, Aaron Rodgers would have stripped votes from Trump, right? Because Trump still has a major blind spot, and that is big pharma and everything that had to do with the vaccine and not really getting it on that level. At least it's the rare instance where Trump doesn't have his finger on the pulse of his base, which is Trump's superpower, right? I mean, that I'll almost never doubt Trump's ability to capture the American subconscious about almost any subject. The man understands pulp culture better than anyone, right? Really, he does. But on the vaccine thing, he's been wrong for a bunch of reasons. Who knows why? We can't tell his incentives. We don't know what's going on with that. And we don't want to mind read him because we can't, right? It looks like his impression of things are different. It looks like he's being sort of honest. I don't think Trump's lying about his stance on the vaccine and his response to COVID or anything like that. It's just who he is, right? So, we've all come to terms with Trump warts and all, right? I have many years ago came to terms with Trump warts and all. One of the warts is the vaccine piece and his response to big pharma and what they are. You see Legendary Energy, who I love, right? Legendary Energy, great account on Twitter. He's been consistent in his criticism of Trump on this level. You get Cernovich, who has always been consistent about Trump's blind spots and weak points, right? One of the things that makes Cernovich so credible is he was one of the first people to abandon Trump when Trump was making his cabinet in 2017, right? When Trump put together his original cabinet and hired all of these mentally ill Republicans, there was a lot of people who helped him get elected in 2016 saying, you're throwing the whole thing away. You're throwing it all away by doing this, by getting the Paul Ryans involved and all these other low IQ idiots. So when that happened, people like Cernovich and Legendary Energy said, Trump, you're being dumb. You're being stupid about this stuff. And, you know, in the end, they were right? Trump did make these mistakes. He was never able to capture the entire executive branch. You had people tattletaling on him from his own administration. You had people running all kinds of operations inside of his government that really did hamstring him for 4 years, right? So even Mike Pence being the first person who stopped supporting Michael Flynn. You know, what a tragedy that was for the administration. There's nothing wrong with what Michael Flynn did in the early months of the transition. Nothing wrong. And in the end, it was Mike Pence who said, you shouldn't be talking with the Russians. And that's what led to this precipitous issue, right? So it looks like Trump got lured at the time into thinking that there was some kind of bridge he could make to traditional Republicans. It was never real. It was always fake. It was always a trap. It slowed him down. It created problems. He promises he won't do that again. And I believe him. Right? I do. I believe him. I believe he's going to fix his mistakes from the last administration. But what we saw here with this Shanahan girl is that as a Bitcoiner, her priorities are simply the health, and especially speaking directly to other mothers the way she has, right? She's gone on this whole thing about what happens when you combine the birth control pill with other pills, and nobody's studying that. No one's studying vaccine upon vaccine upon vaccine. So she wants to get into health data. She wants to start using AI to aggregate this stuff and to get some insights into exactly what's going wrong with Americans, right? And indeed, this looks like a targeted attack against the Democrat base. So there's nothing but good in this result if what you want to see is more chaos and more inability for the deep state to cheat in the election, because this will actually mix the cards up to a great extent. Now, there's a bunch of people out there who can't see the path to victory because of this selection, because they're probably too much on the Republican side. Now, again, I don't think this puts him over the edge to win. I think it's not, this is not necessarily that. What it does do is it does to the Democrats what Trump did to the Republicans. The way I just explained that Trump was going to be done with these legacy Republicans after this, there's no opportunity. And I trust him in his desire to completely bury and kill the old Republican Party. I think he's going to do it this time because he understands it. And I've told you many times that the thing that the 2015, 2016 vintage of MAGA Trump supporters like myself always love him for doing, right? The thing that we always think is great that he did, that we'll never forget, that we'll never not enjoy thinking about, was when he destroyed the old Republican Party, when he destroyed the party of the Bushes, when he said that McCain was not a war hero because he got caught, when he took all of their sacred cows and just fucking abused them, right? Just took a tire iron to their face and destroyed them, right? So when you see that that's what was required to push the country forward, that you needed a kind of revolution inside the Republican echo chamber, and that Trump's provided that, there's people like myself who were already trying to exist within this bubble of conservative ideology and debate and argument and all that kind of stuff. And we're already becoming Bitcoin sort of refugees. That was the only place we could go because we could see the system was corrupted. Trump immediately became recognizable to us for what he was doing. He was going inside the Republican Party and demolishing it. Now, what I find great about what RFK is doing here is this is a clear sign that he is not coming as a mole or a saboteur for the Trump campaign. This makes it clear that he is on the same blood vendetta mission that Trump was on to destroy the Republican Party two election cycles ago. Right? Trump will have realized that if he wins this time, he'll have realized his complete internal revolution of the Republican Party this time around. He did not quite get there before. He fell for whatever he fell for, right? But what RFK is doing with this particular pick, now, I can see why a lot of people would say, oh, you know, she donates to these things, George Soros and all that kind of connection. Yeah, maybe. I think at a certain point, though, at that level, you get all these people get connected. All these people get connected. This person's on that board and that board and that board. It doesn't really underline intent, and it can't be used to completely mind read these people, right? We don't know really what her absolute intentions are, but what we heard from her yesterday was pretty interesting, right? So she talked about chronic disease. She talked about the conditions like autism used to be 1 in 10,000. Now in the state of California, it is 1 in 22. So she's coming at this as a mother. She talked about how her own kid got this. Now, the first time I ever believed any of this vaccine stuff was because of the California mothers. Remember, California was the first state in America, and this happened already in 2016, 2017, that limited the amount of new, or I guess stopped new vaccines from being added to the newborn list. And this is around when I was having a kid. So I kind of looked into it. I never even thought about the vaccine question before. Like, of course you like vaccines. Who would be anti-vaccine, right? But then I understood this idea of compounding vaxes, that wasn't being tested. But more importantly, I understood the incentives and the business model around vaccines and how easy it is to get them to market compared to other drugs. Once I saw the incentives, once I saw the business model and the financial reasons why companies would want to get subscribers, a baked-in subscriber base to their vaccines, I had questions, right? And the most believable part of it all, because already then I was not like, what's the science say? There was no science. No one was looking into it. Nobody, right? So you couldn't go on the science. What you could go on at the time was the mothers, who didn't seem to be politically active. They were just simply mothers saying, this is a problem that I noticed. I saw this. This was a consequence of what we did. And that to me was the most believable thing I'd heard on the subject. Just plain mothers from all political stripes telling you what they had observed, and they wanted questions answered. They wanted the right questions being asked. Forget about questions being answered. They wanted the right questions being asked, which is again why I think RFK in what he's doing is great, right? Remember, RFK doesn't have to have the right answers. When he talks about telling the truth and that his path to victory is telling the truth, it has nothing to do with being right about things. Telling the truth in this case is asking the right questions. That's all it is. No one has the answers to this stuff. It's not possible, right? We can't find out the answers to these things. We can ask the right questions, and that's what he's going to do. So she comes in and says this, right? That conditions like autism were so small. Then she starts talking about chronic disease. She said one is the toxic substances in our environment, like endocrine disrupting chemicals in our food, water, and soil. Second is electromagnetic pollution. You don't hear politicians talking about that either. I don't know anything about that, right? Am I worried about electromagnetic pollution? No, but some people will be, right? The third cause is the cumulative impact of medications and vaccinations received through childhood, for which comprehensive safety studies assessing long-term effects are currently lacking. So what she says is no single safety study can assess the cumulative impact of one of prescription on top of another. We just don't do that study right now, and we ought to. So indeed, she is, like I said, married to a fella who works at Lightning Labs. And I think you're going to get more understanding of, and if you're at that point, right, if you're at that point of understanding of Bitcoin, you start understanding we're talking about subconscious, we're talking about incentives, we're talking about how you really get into someone's subconscious and start reprogramming them, right? And that's really what we're talking about. When we're talking about all these issues, what we're really talking about is how to enter into the subconscious, which is what has been completely shielded from us when we have this fiat incentive structures. That's what's polluted our data. That's what's made most of what comes from experts just complete garbage, right? So, and even the business models around it, right? Even the business models. There's a new book called The Barons of American, I don't know that's what it's called. Yeah, it's called Barons, right? So there's a new book called Barons. And it's about how barons took over American agriculture. So here's what they say. Iowa's food landscape can become like Italy's if the barons who captured the American farm stand can be defeated, a new book argues. Barons, published on Tuesday by Austin Frerick, a native Iowan and Yale food policy fellow, argues that a runaway process of monopoly has gutted rural America while bleeding the taste from American food. In the book, Frederick tells the story of the consolidation of American agriculture since the 1970s to the rise of 7 baronial families that rose to dominate entire sectors of a once diversified American food system. In the book, Frederick... Oh, no, I already got that. Yeah. The subjects of these agricultural sagas range from the Waltons' conquest of the grocery market, in which Walmart now has the same market share as the second through 8th largest grocery chains combined, to the Cargill-Macmillan family's consolidation of a quarter of the grain market, to the McCloskey's family commanding position in dairy. Frerick told The Hill that this consolidation of the market has led to a collapse in American consumer choice. To take one example of many, the Ryman family of Germany, which employs 180,000 workers globally, now owns virtually every American coffee chain aside from Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts. Peet's Coffee, Caribou Coffee, Einstein Brothers Bagels, Pret a Manger, Panera Bread, Stumptown Coffee, Intelligentsia Coffee, Green Mountain Coffee, Trade Coffee, and Keurig. The Hill has reached out to the above companies for comment, blah, 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 blah. So here you go, right? We've got this corruption of the American food system. It is completely centralized, right? Completely centralized. And because of this centralization, we're reaping the benefits of what happens when you have a tainted and polluted and poisoned food system. And it doesn't look good. It's not pretty, right? It's not pretty. We can see it all around America. We can see this all around America. So, you know, that to me anyway is a big sign about what we need to fix. And she's going to be on it. She's going to be talking about it as a mother, which is way more persuasive to these mentally ill females. And remember, the whole Democrat side is just females. It's just females left. Females and Chuck Todd. That's it, right? Anyone telling you that's why they can't go on when you see all these polls coming out saying that minorities are moving to the Republican Party. They can't really tell you what's happening in the fake news because it would spill the beans on the whole narrative. It's the men leaving, right? It's the African-American men. It's the Latino men, right? And what you're seeing is these single women left in one political party, and what we mistake as their political opinions is really just their need for security, and which is mostly invented because the fears that they need safety from are being deposited in their brain. I guess they're being how would I explain it? They're being hypnotized into seeing these particular things, fake white supremacists, for example, as the thing they need to be afraid of. And they're just not there, right? They had to hallucinate them. So people preying on the mental illness and the propensity to be afraid of these things and just hitting that button all day long until you get the result, right? So the good news, though, the good news is we're starting to understand, right? We're starting to understand that the censorship that was required to create this illusion of fear in these subjects like the white supremacists and Trump is a threat to democracy, they could only happen if there was centralized media that use censorship the way Kate Starbird and all these other people have shown, right? So if you don't have this type of censorship, if you don't have this type of brainwashing, if you don't have this type of persuasion, people will settle on fears that are a lot more present in their daily life, like their food supply and these kinds of things. So the censorship piece here was really important to push people over the line and pollute their bodies and pollute their minds the way they have. Now, again, having a woman like this Shanahan, having her speak as a mother as vice president is going to go a long way to changing the perception on that side. So the combination of them could be as damaging to the Democrat Party as Trump was to the Republican Party one election cycle ago. So, you know, I'm not voting for Nicole Shanahan, right? But a lot of people will. And the people who will are going to be from that side. There aren't going to, because of her nomination, they're not going to get any Republican MAGA supporters to cross over. Had it been the football player Aaron Rodgers, you would have found some, right? Because again, like I say, Trump on these two particular issues, big pharma and diet, not the best candidate the Republicans have, and leaves a lot of exposure, a lot of room. And someone like Aaron Rodgers could have easily sucked from the Trump campaign, which is why I think you had those fake news stories about him potentially being floated. I think that was done deliberately to damage, you know, maybe people's perceptions or confuse them about Trump or this. Because again, Trump has a blind spot, a weak spot when it comes to big pharma and in some ways diet, right? He's not exactly the picture of health. He's a very great athlete, no doubt about that. He's very physically strong for his age, much better than Biden. But I wouldn't say he's known for like eating well. And although he looks a lot better in the past few years, it looks like since he lost his presidential campaign, he has lost some weight and looks like he's taking his diet a little more seriously. Now, you know, I eat junk food too, so I don't want to single him out as a major problem. It never affected my impression of Trump. But at this point in the American conversation, I think diet has to be our number one priority. When we're suffering from mental illness the way we are, and we're not tying it into the poisoned American diet, we're sort of missing the whole story here, right? So the censorship was necessary to even get to this position. And now that the censorship is breaking, now that you've got these characters out there, you're going to be able to reach over the censorship line. You're going to be able to reach over the veil, reach over the silicon curtain, and you're going to be able to reach people you never reached before about important things, just like what happened on the Republican side 2 election cycles ago. And indeed, right, a lot of people talking about this, and I'll sort of tie it into what I was saying yesterday. John Robb here talks about Marshall McLuhan and saying the media is the warfare. Now, of course, this is a play on the media is the message, which Marshall McLuhan was famous for coining. And what he says is that changes in the dominant technological medium would create profound changes in identity, how we see ourselves. This new identity will demand equally profound changes in how society should be organized. This naturally creates a rift between those who identify themselves in traditional ways and those who identify themselves in the new way. Worse, these two groups don't even think in the same way. The rift causes wars, terrible ones. He says the classic example, the printing press equaled Reformation, equaled the rise of the nation state. It also creates friction between those different methods of identifying with the new way of thinking, different types of nation states, ideologies, etc. So what he's saying here is that the printing press and this new technology did create better weapons, which did create a consolidation of power inside of a nation state, which gave rise to the nation state as our organizing method. And now we say, what country are you from? What's your citizenship? As a primary identifier of who you are, right? But that's an anomaly in history. We didn't usually identify ourselves with a nation state. We'd do it with a tribe or a region or a much smaller scale. Something that told us a little more about our circumstances and our environment and our conditions and those kinds of things. When we abstracted it to just the government had a lot to do, the government that you were born into had a lot to do with your national identity. That's exactly what Bitcoin is here to change, right? Bitcoin is here in the same way the medium is the warfare. Bitcoin is a medium. Money is a medium. And the war is about that. And in the same way that you have this new technology, you can create these new patterns of thought and new ways of thinking. And in the case of Bitcoin, of course, what we've been talking about all the time is the psychological shift that comes from lowering your time preference, right? That's what we talk about when we talk about entering the subconscious and reprogramming people. My book that's coming out on Friday is all about this, right? And it's, we don't treat the political issue of 2024 as if it's an information problem. Like if we just argue with people and give them arguments, then they'll surely see our side. I saw Preston Pish, who I love, right, yesterday or 2 days ago or something on X, Twitter, saying, I've been bad at orange pilling. I haven't been able to orange pill people. I haven't been able to get out there and orange people. My arguments are not tight. And I replied to him and I said, nothing to do with information. You're dealing with mental illness. You're dealing with NPCs who have been hypnotized because of the message and the medium, right, being this psychological warfare that's been inflicted on people, funded by money printing. So you have this ability to get into people's subconscious and conjure their fears, conjure their wants, which creates the type of people we have, these NPCs that are sort of everywhere, right? And now the method for dealing with NPCs, you'll see in my book, is to first use super prompts, right? So a super prompt can create cognitive dissonance. When you have cognitive dissonance and they're all of a sudden questioning their own world, not because of an argument, because of something mocking that you say, right? Super prompts, and the way I write the book, is really just ways to mock the person you're talking about, but to mock them at a level, at a psychological state that they'll only recognize if they wake up, right? They won't recognize it unless they wake up. It'll just be over their head. But if they strain, if they know somehow they're being made fun of and mocked, they might strain to see it more. And it's that moment where you might get the awakening, the spark might come, which is where you pump those fuckers full of Bitcoin memes. Once they're opened, and this is what happens with cognitive dissonance, it can go the other way. They can get mad at you for doing it, right? But a lot of them all of a sudden realize, once they perceive it, this is why they run away from it, right? They perceive their own embarrassment, they've been tricked, right? That they've been lied to, that they're not too smart to have been hypnotized. Once they see that, that's when you're there to sort of guide them on the next step. So the process that I use on all of these issues is a super prompt to knock them out, and I give you the super prompt that you'll need, and then you pump in the Bitcoin meme as another prompt. So the Bitcoin memes carry so much power, right? The don't trust, verify for elections, fiat causes war, right? All of these ones, end the Fed. You can use all of these, choose rich, right? All of these memes to really start reprogramming the conscious, because they'll come up with the idea themselves. It'll be as if they thought of it themselves, right? Once you shake them, you give them the prompt, they'll put it together themselves, which is the only way you can awaken these people. That's the only way, right? Now, coincidentally, we have the 25th anniversary today, and I went to opening night. It's today, the 25th anniversary of the movie The Matrix. Now, normally I hate Matrix comparisons because everybody does them and it's obvious and but it's the 25th anniversary and it was a great day. I went to the Lowe's Theater in downtown Montreal. I went with a bunch of Romanians I was working in a factory at the time, making furniture. So I was just started. It was like my little break before I started college. So I was about to start college. I took an extra semester of what we call Cégep in Quebec, which is junior college. And I finished at Christmas time. So I didn't start my university in Waterloo until September of that year. So I had this little break period. And so I had to get a job. And so I got a job. And it wasn't a summertime. I wasn't used to only summertime jobs, which is where I had always been working in the eastern townships where I'm from. So I'd had all these summertime jobs. I'd had winter jobs in the service industry, but I was just sort of done with the service industry. I wanted something new and just change my outlook, change my environment. And so I got this job making furniture in Montreal. It was putting, when you see, kind of like on a office furniture, it'll be wood on this side, and then you've got like the kind of laminate that goes here. So that was my job. I ran the glue machine where we put the laminate siding on, and I would slide the pieces so it would have its siding. So I did that all day for 5 months or 4 months or something like that. So I went with a bunch of people that were really cool Romanian refugees that were former Olympians. I found out a lot at that time about a lot of the stuff that we hear about today, the sort of deep state. They were coming with all of their Soviet propaganda that they'd heard and stuff I'd never heard in my life. I'd never heard of tainted water with fluoride. I learned about all this stuff from them. They were way ahead of their game at the time, right? So very interesting people. So indeed, it's the 25th anniversary of The Matrix today. And indeed, that analogy of waking people up, and you see it in the story, they have to do it themselves, right? Wake up Neo with a few little carrots and sticks can get you there, right? And these are all sort of super prompts that can allow someone to want to take in that case, red pill, in our case, orange pill. And it reminds us, getting back into this subconscious thing, Josh Dolani, who's under Old Books Guy, wrote a really interesting summary this morning on Aldous Huxley about all of this stuff, right? So this is what he says. And it's about movies in particular. And it's a bit about what we were talking about yesterday when I was telling you all about the teen spirit, right? Smells like Teen Spirit. Here we are now, entertain us. The passive nature that fiat induced, right? And that's what we're about to hear from Aldous Huxley, that the financial system and whatever era we just went through literally induced this kind of posture when it came to experts and third-party information distributors and people who would spread a simulated reality around you, right? So here's what we say. Josh Delaney says, source of modern man's weakness, stupidity, and a general lack of vitality. His leisure activities. Aldous Huxley predicted the degeneracy of modern amusements in a 103-year-old essay. So by the way, if you didn't know this as well, Aldous Huxley's brother was one of the main founders of the CIA and all this stuff, right? So I hope you know that, right? Not necessarily evil, right? We can't necessarily tell the motivations of these people back then, but he was a major proponent and a major architect of a lot of what you see around us, right? So Huxley on why and how to radically rewire the way you spend your free time, right? So this is all related to Bitcoin as far as I can tell. Aldous Huxley writes that pleasures must not be an escape from effort. In fact, they must be unavailable without effort. Why? Because when preceded by effort, pleasure reinvigorates. But when preceded by nothing, pleasure retards your brain's reward systems. Regression of entertainment. At royal weddings, theological debates were arranged as entertainment. Logicians debated God at Prince Palatine's engagement. Huxley, there was a time when people indulged themselves with distractions requiring a certain intellectual effort. Now, again, I don't ever want the breakup here to feel like homework, right? It's not homework. This isn't a class. we're having coffee, but it should get you to think, right? It should get you to see something new. It should get you to engage. That again, why I love doing the show live and why it's necessary. Why I can't just do here's 10 minutes of me summarizing something perfectly, right? With the right writing and the right. I could do all that. I could do a 10-minute of this every day with me writing. It would be a lot tighter, probably a lot more accessible, probably way more popular, right? But it doesn't interest me because I want to do this interactive medium, which I think is important, right? So again, when whatever that guy said the other day, he's got to chill out when there's news. Yeah, okay, I got to chill out, sure. But again, I'm not here. It's not just look at me juggle, right? That's not what's happening, right? We're trying to juggle together, right? And that's a different exercise. So he talks here about the regression of entertainment. Huxley notes that in Elizabethan times, regular people could be relied upon to break into complex musical acts like madrigals or motets. I don't know what those are. People had to exert their minds in an uncommon degree to entertain themselves. This kept their minds supple. Normies today could never. Aldous Huxley hated mass manufactured distractions. Here's him on movies, right? Countless audiences passively soak in the tepid bath of nonsense. No mental effort is demanded of them, no participation. They need only sit and keep their eyes open, but mental effort is necessary. Huxley writes that in the past, entertainment was a consequence of active collaboration between friends, family, and neighbors. Today, these very people sit in darkness in movie theaters and silently watch something that strangers made halfway across the world. In The World Until Yesterday, Jared Diamond writes about African kids who make model airplanes from sticks and stones by looking at a newspaper picture. Kids in rich societies buy airplane sets from the mall. Kids' entertainment becomes passive in advanced societies, which is why you're seeing more and more of this incompetency around, right? So even just yesterday with the ship thing, right? You had a third of the American population who went, that's incompetency and DEI. A third. You had a third of people say that's an attack on our country, and a third of the people who just went, oh, right? But still, that you had the American population divided into basically 3 equal sets yesterday. I mean, it's a straw poll. I have no idea if it's real, but that was my impression, right? You had a third of the people saying instantly DEI, incompetence, what happened? Another third saying we're at war, someone's attacking us, and another third going, what do the experts say, right? So that's what we saw yesterday, and indeed, this the active ability to think through these things and not be passive, not just wait for an answer. Right now, you have to. It's fog of war, so you do have to wait. But the idea that people would jump and start thinking and do that is actually a good sign, right? It's actually a good sign. It was actually a great sign yesterday that a third of the American population went immediately to incompetence, immediately to Atlas Shrugged. It's a good sign. Now, I don't know what happened yesterday. I don't know, right? No one knows yet. We probably will never know. Who knows? But nevertheless, it's a sign that things are changing, right? Huxley on how tech makes us less creative. Before machinery, men who wanted to amuse themselves were compelled in their humble way to be artists. Now they sit still and permit professionals to entertain them with machinery. In Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, the savage says the following the technocrat who wants humanity happy and comfortable. But I don't want comfort. I want God. I want poetry. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. I want sin. These are conditions for growth. Now, this is how we tie it to Bitcoin, right? What basically happened when we did the money printing, and it wasn't even that bad. The money printing actually worked for many years, right? Let's not forget, 1950s America had tons of IPOs, tons of creativity, tons of new companies solving big problems, right? Just imagine what it took to make the original McDonald's. You know how clever those people were? You know how clever the original McDonald's engineers were to have made the line of production for the McDonald's cheeseburger, which is still an amazing thing, right? So you got to imagine there was companies starting all the time at the time. Now it barely ever happens. It was 50 a year that go on the New York Stock Exchange. Nothing like it was a generation ago, right? Now, what ended up happening and why this got even worse was that the '08 meltdown de-risked Wall Street, right? It de-risked it. And then what I like to say about what happened to it is it turned Wall Street into a porno, like an actual pornography versus the real thing, that has risks. You can make a baby, you can get a disease, all these things can happen. Normal sex between two humans has risks. We all know that. Everybody knows that, right? And the risk is what some people like, right? Some people want the real thing. They don't want porno. They don't want to masturbate. But they turned Wall Street into a big porno masturbation fake risk matrix. A fake risk matrix is what we tried to turn our actual cost benefit analysis risk assessors in the world. We turned them into that, which is why it was a major sign, a very good sign, when the original Wall Street cowboys came to Bitcoin so early, the guys like Arthur Hayes. Arthur Hayes was not interested in Wall Street pornography. He wasn't going to whack off to money. He was going to get the money, right? Not whack off, the real thing. He was going to fuck for real, right? And that's what happened. He went into the actual only risk that was left in the world and fucked. Sorry to keep swearing like this, right? Don't want to swear as much, but sometimes you got to swear, right? So indeed, Aldous Huxley goes on. Notice the fort in comfort, right? The word comfort. There's the word fort in there. The Latin root of comfort means to fortify and to make stronger, right? The original sense of comfort was rest that readies you for war, not lounging without aim. Huxley writes that we must return to the original meaning of the word, that comfort means fortify. And indeed, it's why Bitcoiners are going to prevail on this, because we're already creating our own citadel type breakaway society. So even if America is lost, and I hope it's not, I hope this woman can do damage on the Democrat mind, can shake it out. She's a Bitcoiner. I hope she becomes a major dispenser of orange pills. It sounds like she understands the incentive structures. It sounds like she understands that this is a question of psychological problems, that this is a question of mental illness, and also a question of reprogramming our brains. That's what I heard her say, right? I heard in that speech yesterday saying, this isn't about arguments. We need to reprogram people. And as a Bitcoiner, I recognize what she's talking about, right? So again, I'm not voting for her, right? She's not my candidate, but she will do incredible damage as a mother talking about more or less changing time preference of Americans, reprogramming people in the Austrian school way, getting into their subconscious and extending their time preference so that they're not easily duped, easily scared, easily manipulated, easily prompted, right? That is what we need to change. Now, Bitcoiners, because of Don't Trust Verify, are a lot more difficult to prompt like an NPC. They have resistance to it, right? It's a little bit like, it's actually hard to hypnotize unintelligent people because they're like, nah, that guy's up to no good. You know what happens when if someone who doesn't really know what's going on in the world and they come into contact with me, you know what they do? I'm not talking to that guy. There's people, basically, the game Settlers of Catan or Risk, I almost can't be beaten. Right? The reason is not because I know how to play the cards. I know how to manipulate people, right? I know how. Like, I can get someone to do a trade with me that they probably didn't want to do, right? But there's ways to do that, right? So I've had a friend who will say, I'll never play those games with you. I don't play games with Palpatine, right? Like, I'm not doing that. Now, he's trying to be a jerk and have fun, but it's true. I mean, it's not going to be easy. I can be beaten, of course. You just sometimes don't get the cards or the rolls of the dice or whatever. But it's pretty rare. Right? It's pretty rare. In general, those games are about negotiation. They're about trading, and they're about those kinds of things. And it's just not going to happen, right? I'll win, right? I played those games for years with friends, and I probably won statistically 80% of the time. 80%, right? It's not just by luck. So what I learned from that, and the people I would beat are the so-called smart people, right? A dumb person with a low IQ is not going to be playing against me, right? Whereas some of these smart, no problem, right? And they don't even know what they're doing in the end. They wouldn't even know. They don't know they can be hypnotized. They don't know they can be fooled. They don't know. They're just unaware. Someone who's not so smart is going to say, I'm staying away, right? No. And the shields are up and the resistance is up and they're not going to do anything about it, right? So it's a difference, right? It's a difference. So when we hear about this time preference shift and what's required and how we enter the subconscious in this way and what we can actually do to change people's minds and perceptions around this stuff. That's the game we're playing. That's why we're playing this matrix game. It's an active game. You can't be passive in Bitcoin. There is no passivity here. We're all players. We're all players, and that's why we bring this main player character energy to the game, and that's what allows us to win, right? We actually have this capacity to win at this point, and it doesn't take many of us. It really doesn't, right? Main players versus NPCs. It's an unfair fight, and all games show you that. So there you go, right? There you go. John Otoro asks, law school, magic, natural gift combo. Well, John, the best way to look at it, I've been really lucky in my life. So, I kind of had an idea I'd be doing something like this my whole life. And I have a kind of, I guess you could say, a responsibility when it comes to Bitcoin and what we can offer the world, because you almost wouldn't believe my life. Like it's almost an unbelievable story, right? If I add up all these things, you would be like, but the amount of things I've had access to and the amount of things I've seen and done and been involved in, just take Bitcoin, for example. What are the odds? What are the odds that someone like me, right, who I don't know why I lived in Korea or Japan. I don't know why. I just had a feeling. I just said I had to go live there. I went and lived there, found myself there. Now, what a weird coincidence. And then I get all these experiences and Senate banking committee and all these other things. And then Bitcoin comes around, and the literal thing you need to know about is Japan and Korea and capital controls and central bank and foreign exchange manipulation and all things I lived through, like experienced them firsthand. So when Bitcoin came up, I immediately felt like it was made for me, right? Like for my skill set. So it really is just about, and Scott Adams has a way of explaining this. The best self-help book you can ever read, I guess you can say, is Scott Adams' How to Fail at Everything and Still Win Big. What it really is about is talent stacking, right? That you can be sort of in the top 20% of one thing, which isn't enough to even be professional, right? You usually have to be the top 1% of something to be a professional, but top 20% is just, you're good. You're good at something, right? But if you start stacking 20%, top 20%, top 20%, top 20% in different subjects, then you start getting a scenario where the combination of those things creates super results. In my case, I had a feeling that I had to get into public speaking at a very young age. So I just started training myself for public speaking all the time. I'm not a great public speaker, but I'm good enough, right? I'm good enough to do it. So you add that, you add the public speaking, you add the law, you add the science, you add the travel, and slowly you start stacking talents in the same way that you have a tech stack, you have a talent stack, and you stack them, and the combination of those becomes very unique. And so, John's question, I'm not that great, and I'm not like world class in any of those things. I'm not even close to a world class lawyer. I don't really know I can't do magic tricks, although I've worked with in the theater some amazing magicians in my life. But what you do is you stack them, and the combination gives you a unique result. I do have a unique combination of experiences in my life that's perfectly suited for what I'm doing now and perfectly suited for Bitcoin. And I knew that the minute I saw Bitcoin. I had a slightly different reaction to most people when they saw Bitcoin. I found Bitcoin at a time when I was really disillusioned with politics. I knew it wasn't going to work. I knew that it was a dead end. And I was desperate, really looking for something else in my career. And now I did the thing where I dismissed it the first time I heard about it. I was like, that sounds stupid, right? But the next time I saw it, I understood. It just hit me, and I went, oh my God. And I could see that all of my talents and everything I'd done in life were going to be useful for this one particular thing, right? So there you go. That's what we did, right? That's what we did. Super interesting today. Thanks, man. Bitcoiner, who is she? We've been talking about Nicole Shanahan, I think. I think that's who you're referring to. That is RFK's VP choice. Wilby, you know how to paint a picture. Much needed. Thanks, Wilby. Willie was with me in those Korean years. I respect your willingness to share with us. Your perspective is great for all who tune into the breakup. I look forward to hearing from you each and every episode. Thanks, Jason. Thanks. I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you all. I love these comments. I'm telling you. Thanks, Emerson. I think I did that one already. Bitcoin is the winning play today for a better future tomorrow, and today. All right, I'm not gonna read all of the "it's a great show today" things, but thanks everyone who is saying it's a great show today. Bread and Circus is actually the role of mass media matrix mayhem, 24/7, 365, pumping out a constant stream of insanity, chaos, violence, and degenerative moral filth, lawlessness, and depravity. Couldn't have said it better myself. Couldn't imagine just imagine what we're dealing with here, and people are still too mentally ill. And again, going into the Matrix thing, all that we're really talking about with the Matrix is this huge lever that is lower time preference. That's the main difference here, right? You take your time, you don't get the dopamine addiction, you don't have the instant gratification. What the fuck do I do now, right? Where's my phone? Where's my phone? Where's my phone? You know what you don't do when you're with your friends and you're in a calm state? Where's my phone? Where's my phone? You don't do that, right? You forget about it. You forget about it. So just think of what Americans have been subjected to with this January 6th thing. I mean, it's one of the worst things we've ever seen in the history of America. God, please deliver Americans from this evil. It's evil. The types of things that have been said about the January 6ers, about the coup, this is pure, without a question, brainwashing of the worst sort that actually pits Americans against each other. There's nothing more sinister in America today, right? Well, maybe if you think that the deliberate poisoning of the people's food so that they're stupid enough to fall into this brainwashing and division of America, I guess that's worse, right? But it's the same story. It's the same thing. So Bitcoin Deb says, then she definitely serves a purpose. Indeed. She definitely does. Not one small boat around bridge collapse for hours. Not going to happen in any normal tragedy. Tornadoes, landslides, building collapse. Yeah. Say no to Soma. Yeah. Soma. It's what you take when you. Yeah. My mind went immediately to act. I think a lot of people did. Yeah. I always learn something new here. Great, Bitcoin Deb. Bitcoin is the one. Yeah. Hedonism is the disease of the modern age. Yeah. It sure is. All right. Let me get some Rumble folks up. And then we'll be out of here for the day. What are the Rumble folks saying today? Sorry, I missed you, Rumble folks. We love you. Hey, pretty big audience over on the Rumble place. Nice. The Trump company DJT increased Trump's fortune with $9 billion in unrealized gains, though. Yeah, that's why. But it's great. They're calling it paper money. It's paper rich. That helps Bitcoin. Yeah. 500K sats before halving. Life is good, man. Yeah. Bitcoiner lists for sourcing everything, Moran says. Vito, never talk publicly about your stack. Yeah, it's true. Today I might not seem like in a few years this will be enough to torture and kill. I lost my keys in a boating accident. The Breakup Gang is my morning go-to news source. Thank you, Lance. We love that. Good enough for me. Yeah. Great day. No fear. No peace. Indeed. Thanks for coming, everyone. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. And again, I don't think we'll be doing one tomorrow. This kind of is my creative energy time when I produce the show and do it in the morning. So I got to kind of use that tomorrow. I can still do writing after, but I want the really good stuff. I got to put the good stuff into the book tomorrow. It needs one more injection of the really good stuff, and we're going to do it tomorrow. So it's ready. I could share it today and you know what you're talking about, but I want to make it. So I got to push it that extra 1% to make it world class. And so I'll need my vibes tomorrow to do it. And also, it's going to be, it's probably better for everyone because it's going to be a holiday here tomorrow. It's going to be filled with kids. Today is the last day of school for the Easter break. Probably more power washing and shit going on tomorrow. So I'll be better off just putting the time into the book, right? What up with episode? Yeah, so that's what's up with episode 500. That's what's up with episode 500. We're Bitcoiner. Yeah, we were talking about why are you bad at poker again, Kapenta? Yeah, it's the opposite of. So poker is the opposite of Settlers of Catan and the Risk. In both of those games, it's negotiating and trading where people know your position, right? Whereas poker, you have to hide your position, which I can't do. So I can only be open about what it is and then change your mind about where you are. Not the same thing as poker, where I have to hide where I am. Or I can't hide it. So the reason I can't do poker is I don't have a poker face. Everyone knows if I have a good hand or a bad hand. So I'm the worst. I mean, I'm literally just take my money when I play poker. Not the same as negotiating and trading when everybody thinks they know your position, thinks they know your incentives, but you can sort of openly pit people against each other. And, you can't, one of the things I'm good at in Settlers of Catan and Risk is getting partnerships and fake cooperation going, right? Or real. Sometimes you need it, right? If you're in a bad position, you need help, and there's ways to do that. So, for example, here's an example that sort of is still remembered at my law school, still remembered to this day. In fact, I went out with these people in the summertime, and they still bring it up. They still talk about it amongst themselves. I haven't seen them in years. And, now that I'm a separatist in Quebec, I'm going to see them more because they were separatists. And that's how the story starts. It was two dyed-in-the-wool separatist Quebecers, sovereignists, great guys who I hung out with all the time, and they were very fun, that invited me and this other English law student over to play Risk and drink and smoke cigars and have a great old time. So we came over, but of course, we're both plotting and colluding the minute the call came, and I was with the English guy and the friend, so we knew there were teams, basically, right? We knew there were teams. So we get there, and the way the game works out, one of these guys just takes a huge lead at the beginning, right? And he's winning, but he's starting to not treat his French colleague very well, right? So I start on the brainwashing, right? Oh, he's the Catholic Church. He's manipulating you. You can't, I'm here to help you, man. Like, he's going to wipe you out the minute he kills me, right? He's going to wipe you out. It isn't even going to be funny, right? And so we're drinking. So I start getting them to fight, right? They start, don't do that. We're supposed to take them. We're supposed to do this. But they're excitable French people, right? It's what Horatio Hornblower used to say, the excitable French. That's how you beat them in war. They get excited, right? They go, ah. So I started getting them excited and started playing on them. And so we made all these promises to the weaker French guy. Don't worry, I got your back. If you drive your army in the middle of him, he's treating you this way. He's corrupt. He's a dictator, we got your back, right? No problem. But if it's a game, he runs his army into him, and then immediately we kill him, right? So now and then they start fighting, right? Treason, what tree, and they're just fighting with each other. So then me and my English colleague, while they're screaming and yelling in a drunken rage about each other and backstabbing, we put on God Save the Queen and just sit and watch them fight and argue and yell. And then they hear us play God Save the Queen, and they both they realize what's happened, right? And they see these two English guys who've completely manipulated them psychologically, completely, and now they realize the state they're in because they got too excited. They just didn't understand the actual game that was being played. None of that you can do in poker, right? None of that. That's not the game. I don't have the ability to lie about this stuff. This was all sort of transparent. Backstabbing is another story, right? If you're playing these games, you have to be able to backstab. There's that's the game, right? So, and believe it or not, I can backstab people and get them to do it again the next time. To go along with it again, right? It's just how you play the game. It's how you play the game, right? So it's not the same thing. Like Risk, deals. Deals everybody knows will be broken. Yeah, they're always broken, right? They're always broken. Just wear shades. Nah, it still doesn't work. The smile. I have a perpetual smile. I can't stop smiling. I smile in my sleep. So There's just no way. I have too many tells. It's awful. I'm very easy to read, and so that's it. That's it. Anyway, little side quest. What's up with episode 500? So originally, I thought I would be able to release the book for episode 500. It might look more like 499, and then 500 will be on the day I release the book. We'll have a show. It'll probably be 499. Maybe I'll do an episode of the book for 500 or something like that. That was my original plan. But we'll see. We'll see. The timing was perfect to be Good Friday for episode 500. But again, I think I need the time tomorrow. So there you go. All right. Peace. Thanks for coming, everyone. Extended version today.